Hi, and welcome back to the Naples Commission. My name is Shahkarami, and this channel exists to help business owners, families, and professionals in Southwest Florida grow, protect, and pass down wealth while learning from the people shaping the Naples community. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. If you care about business, leadership, wealth building, legacy, and the South Florida lifestyle. Today, I'm joined by Kyle VanDuser, founder and executive director of Cyprus Island Enterprises. Kyle works across business consulting, nonprofit strategy, political consulting, community building, and also helps support Goated Golf, a unique golf brand and membership community. In our conversation, we talk about why reputation is currency here in Southwest Florida, how relationships shape business and influence what's going on in the market, what business owners can learn from politics, football, golf, and faith, and why authentic leadership matters more than ever in this relationship driven market. We also get into succession planning, personal branding, building trust, and serving the next generation, and how community can help businesses survive and grow even when the economy is challenging and difficult. So, whether you're a business owner, professional, golfer, leader, or someone who wants to better understands how the Naples community really works, I think you're going to get a lot of value from this conversation. So let's jump right into it with my interview with Kyle VanDuser. Kyle, thanks so much for jumping on here today. Why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, Sean, thanks for having me. So I'm Kyle VanDuser. I'm the founder and executive director of Cyprus Island Enterprises. It's a consulting firm that dabbles in pretty much everything business, in either the for-profit or nonprofit space, as well as some political consulting, activism, lobbying, and all sorts of stuff. So using my network here in Naples has been a big asset to me in building my business. So it's pretty much in every different aspect of what makes Naples so beautiful and so awesome as a community. So happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And when you bring up the consulting, especially on the political side and the lobbying side, are you more focused on local political or state political or national political movements?
Yeah, you and I kind of talked about like top of the funnel. So in politics, everything's connected, and it's something that I've learned that once you know one person, it becomes a very small, tight knit community. It's all about relationships. So I started out in a local federal race, but that has gotten me into a lot of local, state races, county races, city races, all that stuff, and then also working with local lobbying companies or activism companies, and that has grown into a lot of connections to the federal political world or even the national activist world, which has been kind of cool to build those relationships. And then you see where they take you. So both sides, yeah.
Wow. Would you mind just telling about, so you have run for office before?
No, I've only run the campaigns for them. Yep.
Understood. Okay. Okay. So, from a business aspect, how does that differ? Are there any nuances or things that are different from maybe a for profit business versus a not for profit or something that's more campaign and politically focused?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of my nonprofit clients have come through the relationships I build in politics. And then my for profit clients are usually concerned with sales, growth, nexting their business, or maybe even restructuring the people around them and where they are in their talents. Politics is a mixture of both. It's 501c3s and 501c4s are not far off. It's basically like running a development team that also is a business. And that business is the candidate or the person or the policy that you're trying to get through. So it's a great marrying of both. Everything I've learned in business has been able to kind of leak over into both my politics life and as well as my nonprofit consulting. And it's all intertwined. A lot of the stuff that you learn or do to build that team, it almost becomes more heightened experience when it comes to politics because you really got to have people you trust, people you know, and then you want to utilize. You have such a short time. I mean, most campaigns are 6 months, 9 months. Some of them are a year or two, depending on what you're doing. You don't have that much time. This isn't a 10-year business where you have a 10-year plan. You have 6 months and you got to build a team, trust it, and roll from there. So it's almost like taking everything I've learned and throw it into overdrive with, 1,000 milligrams of caffeine and roll forward. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of see that translate and then see if you can do it at a high paced schedule.
So let me ask you this. Over the past couple of years in business, building a personal brand has become more and more important, it seems like. I would assume, and correct me if my assumption is wrong, that in politics, building a personal brand, at least for the person running for office, is probably even more important. What are the similarities and maybe some of the differences that you've seen from a traditional business owner and for someone who has political aspirations?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. Most of it is like if you look at like a business that's more of a product style business, your quality and your reputation is based in the quality of the product, right? And what you're able to produce to provide either a need or a want that someone else wants. On the politics side, it's the person, the policies. What policies and principles does that person have? And are they firm enough to not change? So like you get really used to a product that you really like, it's good quality, it's useful, or maybe it just looks good and you like the feel of it. Then that company starts to change those products and start to cut corners and start to do certain things. You lose trust in that product and you lose trust in that company. You have to find another one. And we see that a lot of times in politics where you have a person that you've kind of built this brand around, this integrity and this people are following because of the policies that they're pushing forward, but the principles weren't always there. So they start to change their principles to form different policies or different things. And that's where it starts to get a little hairy. And you start to see a lot of good politicians or good candidates or even good people start to turn a little bit worse and people start to lose trust in that. And so when it comes to like the business side and the campaign side, it's very, very similar. And the SWOT analysis is it's almost one for one. It just is a person versus a product or a policy or principles versus the product or structure of what you're selling. And so yeah, it's very, very similar. You have to keep to it's easier for a person to change. It's harder for a product to change. You have to do a lot of product testing and all stuff. Very simple for a person to change. So I would say it's harder in that aspect, but it's very one for one in analysis and building the trust behind that product.
And so, knowing that you're well established here in Southwest Florida in the Naples market, trust is currency. And my background is my family and I have lived in Naples for right about a year now. We spent the summers here for 5 years. And when we made the transition from Texas to Florida, one of the things I was most excited about was moving from the Dallas Fort Worth area, which is very large and grew very quickly post COVID, down to a little bit of a smaller community. And I have noticed how quickly, one, that I've been able to meet new people, which is amazing. But it still feels like, even though Naples has grown, I'm not by any means calling it small, but we live in a community where everyone kind of seems to know everyone.
Hmm. Yeah.
How important is reputation on the business side of things and on the political side of things?
It's everything. It's everything, especially it's a small town with with a big personality, and it always has been. And even if it gets bigger, it's still going to be this small town feel where everyone knows each other and everyone talks. And so in this town, especially, this town is kind of a ripple that affects a lot of different communities across the country. And when your reputation's good here, it travels. As soon as I go somewhere else, it could be another state, and it could be a state that's completely opposite of Florida, not like Texas, it could be New York, it could be California. As soon as you say you're from Naples, there's a certain mentality that comes with you. And then 90% of the time, someone knows someone that either lives or vacations here. So immediately your reputation precedes you based on who you know, and who you're friends with. And so, yeah, it's big here, probably more so than in any other place, because it's almost like that small town reputation follows you wherever you go, where that doesn't happen in, small town Alabama where everyone knows you there, but you walk into Georgia and no one knows you. It does follow you. So it even more so in this town and in this atmosphere and social scenes, it's even more important, I think, to make sure that you are keeping the right company, doing the right things, maintaining loyalty and integrity, and keeping your reputation as spotless as possible, because it will get around and it will damage you everywhere.
Well, I appreciate the transparency in that answer because it's something that I was able to pick up on really quickly. And on the other side, the positive side of that, the people who do have good reputations, especially in business, is in Naples, I've noticed people are very loyal. And that is something that I saw decrease in Dallas Fort Worth as the
Mhm.
population size grew. Just because you were in business for 30 years or you had certain credentials, it didn't really mean a whole lot. But what I've noticed in Naples is that when you have a good reputation, when you have a good education, when you have the credentials, when you're honest and hardworking, that people are loyal to you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen businesses grow here for the last 5 years, even post-COVID, and so, almost 8 years now, and it really shows you who actually stood the test of time and who stood the storm that was coming, that was out of our control. And even those companies who I have a friend who runs a concrete business in town. And it was funny. They're a very, very prominent company. They've been around 20, 30 years, but he had only taken over the company like 8 or 9 years ago from his dad. And that can be a tricky situation where you start to see quality and relationships start to kind of fall to the wayside because maybe the son isn't up to the par that their dad was and what their dad has built. But then COVID, actually after COVID, we had a really bad hurricane come, and he personally took a $300,000 bulldozer and started clearing roads on his own dime and on his own time. And that goes to show, like, if you are able to take the principles that are built here and expound upon them in the next generation, you see that kind of develop really big reputation for your business, and that's I think is key here.
First off, that's an amazing story. And I like to highlight that because I like to put the spotlight on this community because I feel like a lot of places in the United States with growth, with AI, with Zoom meetings, with less emphasis on person to person relationships and relationship building, it's been a very refreshing breath of air for someone like me who's always been in professional services in the relationship business to be somewhere where people still value that. And so I guess kind of leading into my next question for you is you mentioned the personal relationships and how it helped build your consulting inside of political nonprofit endeavors. What tips, tricks, what did you do to build those personal relationships to get from where you started to where you are today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and some my dad always taught me, is just be authentic. Especially like we talked about reputation. Every single person I've met, I've treated them as if they're, just solid gold. And I truly try to take every single person as important and try to make them feel that way. And then I'm just myself because it has been a good testing ground in this culture and in this community that if you start to say something that you're not, you're going to forget who you told and you're going to meet 10 of that person's friends within the next, 30 days. And if you don't remember what you've told, it's way too hard to remember who you were, presenting in front of that person and who you were over here. And so it's just been like, dude, just be authentic. And then if that continues to track, you may have only met that person once, but that the fact that their 10 friends met you and they have the same exact saying or the same exact feeling about you, that builds your reputation too. You don't necessarily have to build that relationship with one individual. You just need to keep consistent and be authentic to who you are. And it's way easier to build friendships that way. I think you hit the nail on the head, like the COVID and the Zooms and the remote work has really damaged our ability to, one, be ourselves, and two, build relationships. And so if we can lean into that, I mean, all businesses are built on that. And if you don't have any relationships, you don't have anything. It's amazing how fast my network has grown by just treating people with respect and being myself in front of them. And then it grows from there. It sounds simple because it is. It sounds easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes we do want to kind of, elaborate on ourselves or exaggerate ourselves of who we are. And it doesn't hold up in the long run, and it's exhausting. So it's actually allowed me to be a lot less stressed too in my business, even though most people are like, dude, politics is stressful, or consulting stressful, or being your own boss is stressful. Yeah, if it can be, if you have to remember what you said and how you said it and who you were. But if you're just yourself and you have the same exact relationship and the same exact characteristics and personality with everybody, and it's who you are, it's not hard to be someone I'm not. Or it's not hard to be who I am. It's hard to be someone I'm not. I have to act all the time. And so that's been the biggest key for growing my network quickly. And then in business, it's just listening and trying to find solutions where you can, being humble enough to say, hey, here's a solution. And they say, I don't like that. Okay, let's find another solution. And being able to be humble in those circumstances. One, you grow as a person and you learn. And then also hopefully your clients will too. And you're able to build a great network and a great reputation for your work.
There's not a whole lot to add there because I just 100% agree, and I've seen those principles play out in my own life as well. When it comes to what you're doing work-wise, seems like, because I've done a little bit of research, I don't want to come empty-handed to these. It looks like you're doing a lot in golf. Like, you talked to me a little bit about your brother's company, Goated, with the putters, but I've also seen some of your social media content, your reels. It seems like you've been able to integrate golf and your love and passion of golf, the putters, the company Goated, and what you're doing from a day-to-day work perspective.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool because I'm sure we've all heard the saying that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And it's funny how, throughout my life, my faith and God has kind of molded me into this position that I'm in. It's wonderful that like my brother found a passion in golf and it's something that he's loved to do. And he's an amazing golfer. I'm not, but I love to play and it's a lot of fun. I've always been an athlete my whole life. So just playing this new sport that kicks you in the teeth every single day and you have to keep playing at it and keep working at it. We've loved doing it. And so it's kind of cool to build this community of golfers with him, and to be able to be here every day with him also working. So, I absolutely love what I do. And he's only one client of mine, but he's obviously my favorite client, and I love being around him and doing these things. And I've been able to integrate that in my life. I mean, a lot of what we do is community building, and so when I'm in politics, I'm in the community, door knocking and campaigning and networking and doing all these things. And it's been a cool like mediator where I'm able to present, myself. And then once they get to know me, they get to know my brother and they get to know the company. But then they also get to know my other clients who are either, candidates or organizations and really build that together. And Naples, it's a golf community. I mean, we have so many golf courses here. You throw a rock, you're either going to hit a golf course or a church, either one, and that's the beauty of this area. And so I've been able to integrate both because most business gets done on the golf course and most community gets done in the churches. And so I've been able to do both and marry both of those. But again, it goes back to if you're a different person on the golf course and you're a different person in church, there's a big problem there. And so you got to be the same person on the golf course, same person in church, and be able to marry those two together in that community. And then everyone can kind of follows from there. So it's been really great to kind of integrate that in everything I've been able to build here, which is nice.
And it seems like you are very active also in the Ave Maria community too. Do you still do some coaching out there?
No, not right now. I was just at their commencement um uh event or commencement last weekend with Governor DeSantis because again that married kind of two of my worlds. Yeah, I went to Ave Maria University and so I'm an alumni there. And worked there for a couple of years as well. Did a lot of networking and advancement and development work for them for a couple of years, which also helped hone in my skills and really learn from a lot of people who were different than me and in a different strategy on a higher level, which was great. And then so while I was doing that, I was coaching and it was easier because I was there. And so you have the time to just walk across the street to coach and then go back to your office. Now I had to kind of step back from that because it's just got a little too busy with kids and family life and work. But I'm always business coaching. I'm always trying to help. And I'm very involved in their athletics program with speaking and talking to the athletes and connecting them and networking with them across the country as well with my contacts. So I get to be involved, in the capacity that I can, which is really great. I'm blessed to do that.
That's awesome because I think you had said at one point you've coached at high school, and I'm talking about football coaching, right?
Hmm.
You've
Yep.
coached football at the high school and obviously at the college level, which very few people can say that. And on top of all the political stuff and the business coaching, I mean, that's a really strong track record of success right there.
Yeah, I've been blessed. My dad was a coach my whole life, so I've coached football pretty much every age from 5 to 25, and I've coached other sports too at middle school and high school level, and I've been blessed to be in awesome coaching communities, which is great too. And yeah, we've had some success and we've had failures, and as Michael Jordan says, you learn more in your failures than you do in your successes, and it's been able to help me build the person I am today and the business I have today, which is great.
I try to look at failure as just a lesson learned. So on the same page with that. When it comes to football, one of my favorite things, at least in my line of work, is one of my taglines is defense wins championships. So what principles from your sports and your sports coaching have you seen apply the most to what you're doing in business?
Yeah, I think defense is a big one, and that goes back to that SWOT analysis. If you can understand what your weaknesses are, where your gaps are, where your holes are, you can start to mitigate those problems before they start, or maybe just put a good defense in place. So that's been able to cross over because I was always a defensive player my whole life, and I always loved like, yeah, I had an offensive coordinator, joking with our defensive coordinator one time, and I was a player at the time. And I didn't get this statement. He was like, "If you just hold them to 27 points, we'll win the game." And it was kind of like, well, why don't we hold them to 0 points and we'll win the game? Like, why are we giving up 27 points, kind of thing. I never understood that. And then I had another D-line coach who said, "God is the best offensive coordinator because wherever you're supposed to be and you're not, that's where the ball's going to go." And so I think it kind of translated to my business side where I'm like, okay, where am I supposed to be? Where are my efforts, supposed to be? And am I straying over here or trying to do something that I shouldn't be doing? And can I focus in on what I'm supposed to be doing? And if I can protect that area, then that's a good defense that allows us to move forward. And it works that way in business too. A lot of people, especially CEOs, they get distracted with the 30,000-foot view or 100,000-foot view. And they start, or they're not up there and they start getting into the weeds of stuff that they shouldn't even be bothering with. And so being able to reorder and restructure the priorities is a great defensive strategy for most businesses and making sure the people are in the right place. You also don't want your safety playing D line. You got to put the right skills and the right, characteristics in the right roles in your business. And you could really start to see that's a great defense that allows you to move forward. Because if you got somebody who's very energetic, sitting making emails or typing stuff all day, you got to get that attitude and that personality out there in the field doing sales, and that allows your business to grow and to be prosperous in many ways. So yeah, it's always good to look at where are your opportunities and threats, and then be able to mitigate them before they happen.
I love what you said about putting the resources, the energy, the people in the right places. Because the reason that I always say defense wins championships is because, and you hit on it, is because when you have a strong defense, that's when you can open up the offensive playbook.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
so true.
so I believe and have seen that firsthand play out in business is when your risks are mitigated, you can take more strategic risks on the offensive side so that you get more extraordinary growth. In terms of where you are today, what's kind of your vision? Do you have any plans for running for office yourself? Do you see yourself staying in the political realm, or do you have a next level that you're trying to work towards?
Yeah, I think it's both and. I have no plans to run for a specific office as of right now, but I'm always evaluating that at every turn. And it will take an act of God to put me in that position because I don't want to do it unless I'm called to do it. I only want to do it to serve the community. And so right now in my roles that I'm in, I'm able to serve in that way, which is great. Another thing I like to do is it's a hobby of mine, and my wife and I have been building this hobby farm at home where we're able to kind of produce a different life than she or I had. We both grew up kind of close to inner cities, and so more of a rural life for our kids, and being able to spend more time with them and do those things. So everything gets evaluated at that. If it starts to take from that and starts to take time away from that, then I know it's not for me. And so I'm always constantly, evaluating that. But right now, I'm in a great place where I have a lot of freedom. I have a lot of flexibility. My clients are awesome. I love them all. I got a few new clients I'm taking on soon that are going to be really great for the next election cycle, not this one, but the next one, and really start to formulate a great plan for them, and hopefully better the Naples community with their candidacy and hopefully their office holds. So yeah, so I'm in a great place right now, and we'll see what the future holds. I'm always open to everything each and every day. So whatever happens, happens, and I'm willing to go at it with full enthusiasm and full energy. So
I love that. I don't think I'm cut out for political office either, so I can understand.
dude, it's a lot.
I honestly can't imagine. I think one of the things that I'd love for you to expand on is I unfortunately believe there's been a lot of polarization and a lot of divisiveness politically, and maybe you can expand on how I see it, my perception, how I grew up is I'm definitely conservative, but I try not to let my political beliefs make me look at another person differently. And when I see people in the political space, I see y'all very open and working with the other side, typically. And maybe you can just expand on the importance of 100%. I believe our political beliefs are important.
Mhm.
How would you say, is there a way to kind of solve some of this political divisiveness in our country?
Yeah, I think it goes back to service, man. The best businesses I've worked with and the best people I've worked with, man, the CEO is serving more than anyone on their team, and they're really getting their hands dirty. We've gotten to the point where we have politicians and celebrities running the country, and we don't have public servants anymore. That was what it was always meant to be. It was always meant to be people doing their duty and keeping the country the way that it is, or progressing in slow manners that needed to progress. And a lot of it's that, man. We've elevated these politicians to this glorious status and this huge pedestal. And I think a lot of them just need to return to the public service side. Now, a lot of them are amazing people. Getting to walk the halls with a lot of people, I've met a lot of sitting politicians who are celebrities, technically. They're just normal people. And when you get to know them on that level, you see what they're actually doing for their communities and for their states and for their constituents. The more people that do that on both sides of the aisle, I think we're going to see, you'll see the country start to come back together. A lot of them do work together. I mean, a lot of that stuff that you see on TV or you see on Twitter or X or Instagram and that, it's all show. A lot of them do work together. They are serving their communities and their constituents in the best that they think they can. Just sometimes they're a little off, and sometimes they're maybe disagree with the way that they do it. I had a lobbyist say the other day. He said, "No one comes to DC or no one goes to DC with the intent to destroy the country. They usually go in thinking they're going to do something good. Their good may be a bad, but they're thinking that they're doing it for their best reasons. And at some point, they lose the public servant mentality of what is the good for my community? What is the good for the constituents? The common good for everybody. So a lot of them, I think we as the people need to kind of de-escalate our pedestal of them down to this public servant area or a set public servant level and let them serve in the way that they're called to serve. We put them there for a reason. Give them enough leash to do what we need to get done, but not enough leash where they can do no wrong. And I think if we get back to that, a lot more people will feel a lot more represented, and they'll feel a lot more loved, they'll feel a lot more taken care of, and the country will kind of steer itself back to where it's supposed to be.
I love that. And I think I love what you said about the news and social media because I think sometimes perception is not always reality. And look, and it's not that the news is doing anything wrong, but they're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get attention, so they're even my small YouTube channel, like I'm trying to find a thumbnail. Now I try to do it within reason because I do care about my integrity and stuff, but I'm trying to
Right,
find 3 to 4 words for a thumbnail that are going to attract the most clicks,
right,
right? And
yeah,
typically that is the most controversial
right,
4 words I can think of, right?
right, yeah, yeah.
So I think having that understanding, I love what you said about public service, doing it for the right reasons. It kind of brings me back to some of the things that you're doing. I wanted to give you a moment. I saw online you're about to do speak at a conference. I think it's called like the Grit Conference or something like that. You want to talk to the audience about that conference? When is it? What's going on? How can people get involved? How can people be a part of it?
Yeah, we were invited as Go to Golf to kind of be the part of this conference at Estero High School. I think it's particularly for the athletes and student body, and then some of the teachers and families and stuff like that. So I think it's more of like an internal conference for them. But man, the panel is awesome. They're all people that I've done business with. They're all people I network with in the Southwest Florida community. As soon as I saw the lineup of speakers, I'm like, oh, I'm in. This is gonna be so much fun. It's gonna be great. We get to give back to the next community. Something important that a lot of business people miss, and even a lot of politicians, I think it's one of the biggest things that's wrong with politics, is that there's no mentor that they're bringing up underneath them, under their tutelage, to pass on their wisdom and recreate themselves in the next generation. Like we talked about my buddy who took over his dad's business. I mean, his dad definitely instilled the right principles and virtues in him. And we don't do that a lot of times in business. Sometimes we're so focused on growing the business, we forget that there's something that needs to outlast us is the way to get the next generation involved. So the Grit Conference is something that one of the coaches has put together, and he's gathered an amazing lineup of speakers, and I'm blessed to be a part of that group that we get to invest in the next generation, which is going to be great. It's this Friday at Estero High School. It's in their big auditorium. It's basically all morning from 9 to noon. So any business owners out there, I would get involved. If any high school or middle school is doing something like this too, jump on it, man. The next generation is yearning for knowledge and experience and wisdom from us. And so anything you learn, you always have something to teach the next generation. So I would say jump on it when you can.
That's awesome. Yes, I was blown away by the speaker lineup when I saw it online. I'm fairly certain there's a couple billionaires in that lineup as
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
which is really exciting for the high school. And I think what you touched on is something that I try to bring to all my clients, especially business owner clients, which is thinking about legacy, of course, within your family, but legacy within your business. Another
Right.
word for that is succession planning. I never thought about politics that way. Maybe more politicians need to think about succession planning into, who am I going to, raise up as the next leader?
Yeah.
That might be something that you're already working on, but a unique angle, a unique
Hmm.
factor that you bring to the table in your political consulting. And I think that's really
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah, it's one of the advice I've given to people who don't ask for it, but I've given very prominent politicians the advice that listen, before you endorse anybody that's going to take your place, you should mentor them in that position. And especially if there's somebody that we want to keep and maybe there's term limits on their position and they're terming out, the solution to losing somebody good to term limits is that they've invested in someone to take their place that can take on the next term and teach that person to do the same. Luckily, term limits do help us to get bad politicians out who are just, completely lost their way. But there are good politicians out there and there are good people who are doing good things. And so when those term limits come into effect in certain seats, you gotta be invested in the next one. And no one should get your endorsement except for those you've tried, trued, and passed on your knowledge and wisdom to. I think that should happen in business too. No CEO or board should ever try you shouldn't have to hire outside the company. There should be somebody that's right there, younger and ready to take on the reins of the company to keep it the way that it's going and keep those successes and hopefully take it into the next generation or whatever modern times may bring. I think that's a big solution to one our culture, but also, yeah, politics and business alike.
Well, I can say firsthand, I've been blessed to work with a number of different companies, big, small, mid-size, and the companies that hired internally typically had much better cultures than ones who are always looking for the next external hire.
Right. Right. Yeah. Especially those companies that invested in their internal, those that just let their employees kind of, stay stuck in a job and don't work on their business development of their own employees. I've seen companies really invest in public and personal development and business development for their own employees. You've already spent the money and resources for the training. Might as well, give them the wisdom and knowledge that you know too so that they can take over. Why would you go and hire somebody else to just undo all the work you did? And so yeah, no, it's definitely a key aspect of business, and you see those businesses last, with all the storms and stuff that come.
And it's evident to me of your knowledge, but also your experience that comes from, lived experience, your wisdom. I want to turn the page and ask a question to you that I think a lot of people find valuable. One of the things that I try to always do is not sugarcoat things. And when I'm looking at the economy for indicators, things are hard right now. Gas is almost $5 a gallon. Tree prices have gone up anywhere from 20 to 50, 60%. Families are feeling it. Even in an affluent community like Naples, families are
Mhm,
feeling it.
mhm.
Your brother and you helping him are selling collectible level putters, and it seems like y'all are doing well in an economy where a lot of businesses are struggling to sell services. And as much as I love golf, we both can agree a putter is not a necessity. Like
No,
it's not going to feed me or my family.
right.
My
Yeah.
question for you is, what are a couple points of advice, especially from a sales and marketing perspective, that you think would help business owners through kind of a rough patch in the economy that you've lived out and are still being able to be successful in a high end market?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, putters are not necessary. They're necessary for the game of golf, but not for life. And so the biggest thing that we've found is and we keep going back to this, but it's true, it's relationships. We've actually built an entire club membership. It's called the Go Club. And we've built these members that have become family. And through times where, we're not making sales, we don't have the traffic we don't have, the marketing numbers that we want, or, obviously times are tough. And so people don't have the excess income that they had in the past. The relationships are what get us through. And especially tying those relationships to something that does elevate them and make them better. It's funny, we've had people that have come to us and said, "Hey, I can't afford the membership this month because I'm going through a hard time." And we've comped them a couple months. And so there's things that we've done. You take care of those people in those times. And once that then when the tough times come for yourself, they're there to have your back too. We witnessed something today. I was telling you, we were putting out fires all day today. We witnessed something today I won't get into, but as soon as the club found out about it, they told us, and they're the ones who actually made us aware of the problem, and we were able to fix the problem. And then they started to ask us questions like, "Hey, is this going to affect, my membership?" And we said no, and we came to them with, with clarity, with respect, with transparency, and they were like, "Thank you so much," and they were right there for us. And so, yeah, so it's really the relationships you've built and the way that you've made people feel. That's what they're always going to remember and go back to in tough times. And so when people are down, they're depressed or they're upset or maybe they're just having a rough time, they're always going to go back to the people they can trust. And so when you build those relationships and you build trust on top of that, it gets you through the tough times. It may not get you to the numbers you were at, maybe $1 billion company makes it a $1 million company, but at the end of the day, you're going to stay afloat enough to get to the next level and to get through whatever's coming your way. And so, yeah, so it really goes back to relationships and being able to do that. And like you said, on the marketing side, we've been able to tell a story that has connected people to us and has helped people out of situations in their lives. And in that marketing sense, we've marketed our transparency, which has built our relationships back to us, which is pretty cool. So people don't buy from our marketing strategy because they're cool and they're catchy and they are, but that's not why people buy from us. They buy because we've sold a story that has connected with them and now has connected them to us. And it's been something that has transcended good times and bad times, which is great.
Well, man, you've sold me. Real quick, I just want to say one of the reasons that I fell in love with golf is, like you said, there's ups and downs to life, peaks and valleys. And golf is a sport where I feel like it's the most like life. It's long. Most of the best golfers I've ever played with play the long game, play strategically. And number two, I've hit some really good shots in my life and just got really unlucky bounces.
Hmm.
And I've hit some really bad shots in my life and got some really lucky bounces as well. And that's kind of what life is like too. And it's every time I play golf, it's kind of a reminder of the ups and downs. And you can go in it with the right intent and the shot can be perfect, but if it hits the fairway the wrong way, it can still bounce in the rough. I guess where I'm going with that though is tell me a little bit more about this membership. For me and for everybody else, but for also me, how do I become a member? Do you have a website? How can we learn more?
Yeah. Yeah. So one quick touch on what you just said. I mean, Rory McIlroy won the Masters this year and he only hit an average of 10% fairways. And so like he was not hitting good shots the entire time, but it was the recovery and getting back up on his feet and hitting his next shot perfectly that made him win the Masters, which arguably is the hardest golf, course and all tournament in the country, in the world. And so yeah, totally completely like that. So yeah, this membership is awesome. So it's called the Goat Club. You can go to our website, goated.golf, and click on memberships. There's 3 tiers, so you can get in at a reasonable level. The bronze level gets you, an automatic towel every single month, and it's a special, unique towel you can only get as a club member. There's a Chrome membership that gets you a little bit more of the items. Every month we celebrate a new goat, someone that's the greatest of all time. And so you get a few more items like a head cover, an accessory, certain things. You get about $300 worth of stuff. And then the final level is the gold level, and that's an expensive one. It's a great high ticket point, but you do get a putter, polo, towel, head cover, all these things that are themed around the goat. You get about $1,500 worth of stuff every single month. And then you also get community. We build this community there's a group message where they all get to message each other, hang out, talk to each other every single morning. The members are saying good morning to each other, checking in on their golf game, joking about. We've had prayer requests, we've had trials, we've had tribulations. We've all been there for each other and everything. So yeah, once you sign up, you automatically get added to everything. You even get a vault side of our website that only you can buy stuff on. You get discounts, all that stuff. So it's a great membership for that, but it's also a great membership for community where you also get to. I mean, we've had people drive 3 states over to play golf with each other that never would have met each other if it wasn't for our membership. So cool.
So that's goated.golf. I will
Yep.
be on there after this interview's finished. Kyle, where I always like to kind of land the plane here is to kind of give you the final word. But this time I kind of want to ask you if you talk a little bit just about your faith. So I'm a man of faith. I think everyone that I've interviewed, not exactly by intention, but I think birds of a feather tend to flock together. I think everyone I've interviewed so far has been open about their faith. You've mentioned it at least 4 or 5 times. Would you just kind of expand on that faith, and how that's affected your personal life and your business life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, I'm a deep man of faith. I was raised in a Christian home and remain Christian now in everything I do. I've even got to the point where I'm gaining my master's in theology because I just want to know more. Knowledge is power, but it's also the beginning of wisdom. And so a lot of what I've experienced in life has led me to be wiser, but it's always great to know more and to be a lifelong learner. So I'm continuing to do that. On my lock screen, it has a Bible verse, Proverbs 16:3. It says, "Commit your ways to the Lord, and your plans will succeed." And so that's how I live my life. I've always committed everything I do. Every time I take a step, it's whatever God wants me to do, and I pray that it's in His will and not my own. And that has led every decision that I've made. Luckily, it's led me out of bad contracts, and it's led me through bad contracts. It's led me to good contracts, and it's led me through good contracts. And it's been able to help me be who I am because I know where my foundation is. And I think it's what gets me out of bed every single morning, knowing that my day's already planned. I just have to go execute it to the best of my ability and roll from there. So it's definitely been my driving force for everything I do, and hopefully it just keeps getting better.
Man, I love that. I love the foundation of faith. I love the mindset, love the beliefs. Same here. The Lord has gotten me and my family through things that are, looking back, I'm like, wow, like it's a miracle. People always like, the miracle still exists. I'm like, heck yes, they do. They do
Yeah, I'm
exist.
right here.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to reflect back and remember
Right.
what he's got you through. So
Yeah,
Kyle,
absolutely.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on. I'd love to do this again with you in the future. Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate you having me, man. This was awesome. I love having these conversations and just being authentic with real people and connecting in a way. So it's been great. So thank you for having me, and I hope everyone learned something from this.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. I mean, you brought a ton of value, a ton of knowledge, practical insights, faith insights, political insights, golf insights, and even more than that. So, to the community, to those of you watching, if you would please like, share, and subscribe. I know you know someone who needs to hear this message, maybe a golf lover, maybe someone who has political aspirations, maybe a business owner who needs Kyle's help in sales and marketing. Whoever that may be, share the video, drop a comment with your favorite observation, insight that you learned, and please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'm Shahkarami.